Hi guys, Maikeru here. This is my video on Raksha. Raksha is such an awesome boss. This is just my first look into the boss and isn't a guide by any means. I will be talking about how I got my kills, but it will not be a guide. And a lot of the things I do in this video are not going to be optimal. It's just what I've done to get my kills and just a little bit of information to potentially help you guys. We're also going to have a look at the new drops and the new abilities. So let's get right into it. Starting out looking at Raksha's drops, he has a couple of new ones. He drops boots for every style. He drops laceration boots, blast diffusion boots. Then alongside these, there is a all-new range variant called Fleeting Boots. What these ones do is these allow you to cast rapid fire while moving. So now you can have Fleeting Boots casting rapid fire while moving, Nightmare Gauntlets casting snipe while moving, and have so much more mobility when doing range. And that is absolutely awesome. I love that. Then in addition to these boots, there's now an add-on for them to upgrade these boots. This Shadow Spike can be attached to one of the pairs of boots to upgrade them, the same way as Rune Dragon boot add-ons work. I'm unsure whether the degradation is the same, as I don't actually own a pair or anything right now, so I don't know whether you lose the spike and, you have to get a new one and keep upgrading them, or whether it's a permanent thing. I guess we'll learn more about that in the future. Then alongside these new items, there are 3 new ability codexes. These codexes were detailed on the news post, and I'll leave the news post in the description to this video if you want to check that out. And I'll just quickly give a rundown of the abilities right now. You have Greater Chain that upgrades the Chain ability. Chain works the normal way. You shoot one monster, it shoots out to 2 additional ones, and Karamin can take that up to 6 additional ones. But what the greater part of this does is the next hit you do on the primary target deals 50% of its damage to all of those chained. So you can chain 6 monsters, then hit the primary target for a hard hit and magic ability, and then deal 50% of that to all 6 of those chained monsters with Karamin 4. Very awesome. Then there is also Greater Ricochet, which upgrades the Ricochet ability. Ricochet works as normal. You shoot it on one, it does the same as Chain, and then hits multiple enemies. Greater Ricochet, however, doesn't deal extra AoE damage. It's more suited for single target. If there are no additional enemies within 6 squares of the monster, you're going to deal all of your extra hits to that monster. So if you have Karamin 4, you're going to deal 6 extra hits of 10 to 50% ability damage to the target that you're hitting. This means you're going to deal 20 to 100% ability damage with the main hit, and then 6 hits of up to 50% ability damage. This means that you're hitting 80 to 400% ability damage for one ability. The same way how people take their lunging and their flanking switches, I feel like a Karamin switch for range could be on the horizon with this. Switching to that Karamin switch, slapping them up with a Ricochet that deals a ton of damage and then going back to normal could be a very viable strat. Then lastly, we have a brand new ability called Divert. Divert shares a cooldown with Resonance, requires 48 defense, and a shield to be worn. When active, the next attack dealt to you within 6 seconds will convert all of the damage you would have taken to adrenaline. So it's pretty much Resonance, but instead of healing you, it gives you adren. That's a pretty cool ability, and I like the fact that it shares the cooldown with Resonance to make you really think about which one you want to use in certain circumstances against specific monsters. Stuff that change the way that you play and change up your rotations and stuff are really cool. And this is a very cool new ability. I will be very much looking forward to seeing how people really utilize this one. And that is the 3 new abilities. Very cool and super hyped to test those out in the future. So now let's get into the actual boss, how I did my kills, and just like what I think about the boss in general. I'm going to speak through one of the kills that I've done. It's definitely not perfect by any means, and I make a ton of mistakes. but it's a good way to try and help you guys with some fundamental basics of the boss, and I'll make a full-blown guide in the coming weeks, but I don't want to do that until good methods are known, and obviously I want to have improved at this boss to make a guide on it, because I don't want to make a guide when I suck at this boss, because if you look in the background you can see me fighting Raksha, and as you see there's a lot of prayer flicks being done wrong, me going to low HP, and yeah, there's a lot of scary points every time I fight this boss still, and I'm still dying here and there as well, and I'm definitely not perfect. But this boss is hella fun, and the mechanics of this boss are actually pretty damn cool. The mechanics are fairly straightforward and not too difficult, but I will try and explain them as this kill goes through, just to say like what to look out for and, you know, how to overcome certain things along the way, and how I got my kill. So judging where I am right now, I'm just DPSing while kiting Raksha down. Because if you stand in melee distance of Raksha, he's going to do a lot of melee hits on you, and then also range and magic. I don't really like standing in melee distance just because the melee hits can really mess me up, but you can stand in MD if you want to, if you're comfortable with the melee hit rotations and the prayer flicking like that. Not being in melee like where I am and me kiting around allows me to easily see the two different attacks that he'll do, the range and the mage. They're televised just like Jad, and then you can just prioritize the correct protection for those. As you can see, what I'm doing right now is I'm killing these shadow blobs on the floor. There are 4 spawn points of these around the room, and he spawns like 3 to 6 each time he spawns them. And you want to kill these because they're going to heal Raksha and also make his abilities deal more damage. I typically kill them when maybe 2 or so are around in that area, so I can AoE them with a ricochet or a corruption shot or something like that, and then I'll single target a couple of them as well. And while doing this, obviously you need to make sure you're prayer flicking correctly and you're still watching Rashka's attacks, because you don't want to get 4.5k to the face. If you don't prayer flick correctly, you're going to get heavily punished. This boss is really cool, but as you can see, I'm just chomping food because my prayer flicks are completely garbage. So because of that, I've got a hell of a lot to learn with the prayer flicking and to just get it down correctly and efficiently. This is day of release, and obviously everything gets better in time, and as you can see, I'm making plenty of mistakes as well, but me making mistakes and still being able to get a kill means that even if you guys make mistakes, you're going to get a kill as well, right? It's just perseverance and practice makes perfect. I also have pretty bad DPS in general on this fight, so you don't have to have the best DPS in the world. A lot of my kills are between 8 to 11 minutes, which is a very long kill compared to a lot of the high tier PVMers, but it gets the job done. So as you can see right here, Raksha can sometimes charge, and you can see that he's going to charge by his body language right here. And as soon as he's about to charge, you want to surge or just run away, because if you get hit by this charge, you're going to get hit like a 8k and stun. So do make sure you dodge that charge. That's one of his attacks that's very annoying. Raksha normally does around 4 auto attacks in this phase, and then he'll do a special attack. So after the 4 auto attacks, he'll either do the charge, or he'll do this other ability that is something that just stuns you in place and then drops a magical bomb on top of you and puts a damage over time area underneath of that bomb as well. And the further you get into the fight and the more shadow that he's absorbed, the more bombs he'll lay down. So if it's really far into the fight, he can literally lay like 4 or 5 of these on the floor, and a lot of your floor can then be covered with damage over time and stuff, so do be wary of this. And try and kill those shadows as quickly as possible to make sure that it's not doing too many of these. He normally rotates between these 2 abilities every 4 attacks. So do make sure you have either Anticipate up or a Freedom at the ready to get out of that stun. Otherwise you're going to take that mage boulder to the face, and that's not good. The only other ability that he slots in between these 2 is this one with these shadow circle orbs. You take a consistent like 400 or 500 damage over time, and the way you get out of this is just by clicking those little balls like 3 times each. I just spam click 3 times on each ball and they fly upwards and you're good to go. If you don't spam click these balls, you take like a 5k to the face and it's not good, right? So spam click these as soon as possible whenever this happens. In addition to this, there are some time-gated mechanics that happen if you don't get Raksha to either 600k or 400k HP in a designated time frame. And this mechanic is where he runs into the middle of the room and does 5 explosions. If this happens, it just means you haven't DPS'd him hard enough in the first 200k or down from 600k into 400k. You can skip this part of the fight completely if you have good DPS. For example here, I didn't have good enough DPS and he went to the middle. What you want to do is you want to protect from magic and then either devotion, reflect, or even take your prayer down and get a cheeky resonance with one of the hits to heal a decent amount. And tank these 5 hits. These are all magic based hits, so devotion does take them down to 1. Once these 5 hits are done, he'll just carry on his rotations as normal. Also, during this attack, it is a good time to go and kill the excess shadow blobs on the floor if you have any laying around. The only other thing that happens during this first part of the fight is rocks falling from the sky at 600k HP and 400k HP. When the rocks are falling from the sky, you can freely soul split and heal back up a little bit while DPSing Raksha, as he doesn't actually do any damage to you. As long as you avoid those rocks, you'll take no damage in this phase. Pretty straightforward. You can see shadows on the floor, just don't stand anywhere near those shadows, otherwise the rocks will fall on top of you. Other than this, that is all of the mechanics. So you have the charge, you have the stun ball coming down from the sky, you have the blobs that you have to continuously kill, and you have those rocks falling from the sky at 600k and 400k. The only additional thing is when you get a decent amount into this part of the fight, he does spawn a little lizard with 10k HP as well. Just DPS that down whenever he spawns, and it's not too much of an issue. I'd recommend using, like, you know, fragmentation shot or something on it, so that it'll walk the bleed and take a decent amount of damage from that or whatnot. And that normally works pretty well. Then you just need to continuously do this until Raksha hits 200k HP, and that will trigger the final phase in the other room of the fight. It'll probably take you a little while to get used to the prayer flicking and dodging all of the mechanics, because it does punish you very hard. The amount of times I've died to a charge when I haven't been paying enough attention, or even just missing a prayer flick, is absolutely nutty. I think I ended up getting 12 kills, but I also had 23 deaths, so I had a lot of deaths to this boss from just silly mistakes, and a lot of close calls, which you even see in this video. So now we're in the last phase. This one is way more simple. There's a couple of ways of doing this phase. There is a way to, like, brute force it with mad DPS and collecting all the anima, etc. For me, I do this slow and steady, and if you're learning the boss, to originally learn the boss and get, like, your first kills, I'd probably recommend you doing it slow and steady as well in this way that I'm doing it, as I definitely found this is the easiest way to get used to the mechanics in this phase and just make sure that I can actually get that kill right. Because a secured kill that takes a couple of minutes longer is better than dying. Literally, all I do is stand south of this southeast pillar. Raksha will do 2 attacks. If you pray melee the whole time, the melee attack isn't really televised, so you can just tank that one whenever it pops up. And then you can easily see the animation for the mage or the range attack and swap to those accordingly. Then swap back to protect from melee once that hit has been registered. You can also chuck on a shield and get a cheeky resonance sometimes if you want some free healing during this phase. When you're on like half HP and it's doing like a range hit or whatever, you can get that back up to full just by resonance in that range hit. After these 2 attacks, he's always going to do a towel swipe as long as you're 1 square south of this pillar where I am. To dodge the towel swipe, all you gotta do is run 2 squares further south. Then once the towel swipe is done, run back south of the pillar. He'll do 2 more attacks. Then he'll do the towel swipe again, run 2 south, and repeat this process over and over and over again until this phase is done. Raksha also charges up at some points where he does an insta-kill where you have to hide behind the pillar. If you're standing where I'm standing, that is behind the pillar and you will not get insta-killed here either. If you do get any anima close to you and you get an extra button on your interface, if you click that, you will do a bit more damage. The more anima you soak, the more damage you do. So what a lot of people do is they'll bladed dive and run around the arena and absorb loads of anima, so then they can just deal loads of damage. But because I'm taking it the super safe way and I don't want to get stunned with magic attacks, etc., I just stand here and just dodge that tower swipe over and over again. It takes longer, but it's a much safer way. That's pretty much it for this last phase. It's a much more chill one in my opinion, and I like this phase a lot when I'm doing it safely because it's so much less stressful. Although if the tail swipe does hit you, it will hit you for an 8 to 9k and stun you, so it can kill you very easily. So do make sure you're always running to south and counting auto attacks so you don't get hit by that tail swipe. And that's how I got my first kills. I now have 14 KC, and I think it's 23 or 24 deaths. My fastest kill is 8 minutes. I definitely don't have the fastest kill time ever, and I'm killing it very slowly and safely, and I'm still learning the boss, so then I can focus on my DPS rotations now that I've actually learned the mechanics. I know there are people like Evil Lucario that have like a 3-minute 20 kill or something stupid, but those guys are insane, and I'm just a noob at PvM. But if a noob like me can get this boss down, so can you. So now that I've spoken about the boss and I've showcased how I've done my kill, I just want to talk about the boss in general. I think this boss is very, very good. It's super well made, it keeps you on your toes at all times, it punishes you so heavily for mistakes, and it's way harder than 100% Telos that they compared it to. I'd probably say this is probably like 300 to 400% Telos, but my god is it fun. It is very, very lean forward, but very fun, and hats off to Jagex for this boss. They've done a great job, and I'm super chuffed with it. It's been a long time since we had PvM content, and this is no disappointment. This is really good. The rewards are still awesome as well. So good rewards, good boss, very, very fun. Even the default rewards, the lowest I got was 300k and I only got that once. Typically I got between 600k to 1 mil in the default drops. And I even got some Onyx Dust. I got 94 of it, which was 3 mil in just a default drop. So it does have some okay default drops as well. It's kind of like the Onyx bolts that you would get at Nex or something. And that tides you over even if you don't see drops. Let me know what you think about this boss in the comments down below. Hopefully this video was helpful to you with a couple of the mechanics and a couple of strategies that I used. Again, like I said, do not take this as a guide. This is definitely not an optimal way of killing the boss. Before I get loads of comments in there saying, you did it wrong, blah, 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 you could do this, you could do that. I know there is a lot of ways of killing this boss. I know this is not the best. Just a first look, just my first kills and my first impressions, and a little bit about the mechanics. Thank you very much for watching. Give the video a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new for loads of future content all related to RuneScape 3. I'm going to be killing this boss and doing a loot video from like 50 or 100 of it or however many I kill. And that'll be coming out sometime this week as well. So, as always, until next time, see ya.